Hi everyone, it's Shannon and welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to be talking about everything that happened with regards to our Disney cruise on the Disney Wish and Hurricane Nicole. So if you don't know, Hurricane Nicole kind of came through that week of November, right before Veterans Day. We were going on the Disney Wish Veterans Day. It was a 3-night cruise, the 11th through the 14th. It was the very first very maritime sailing, and the hurricane came through on Wednesday. So we had a group on Facebook, something that we had been going through and kind of doing, you know, fish extenders and all the fun stuff that you get to plan for the cruise. When the storm started coming through, you know, the airport was closing. So it was really, you know, Disney basically didn't tell us anything. Disney Cruise Line didn't tell us anything. So we assumed the cruise was still happening. The storm was coming through, I think, early Thursday. The storm was going to be gone by the time, you know, Friday came around. But there was no word from Disney as far as what was going on. We just assumed, okay, it's still going on. People were canceling. The airport was closing. So people were rerouting. There were so many people on our sailing that you know, had to go to different airports and flew down to Miami or flew up to Jacksonville and then rented a car and driving. I met this nice lady in our group, poor thing. They flew from Scotland. Now they ended up staying here for 3 weeks, but they flew from Scotland. So they went from Scotland to London, from London to Miami, then rented a car and then drove there. But when they got to Miami, Miami was out of rental cars because a lot of people were doing that, not just on our cruise, but everywhere. They were flying to different airports and then renting cars. So they got there and there were no cars. They had to wait 3 hours for a car. Then they drove to Orlando. And oh, and by the way, American Airlines lost their luggage. So they actually had no luggage for their cruise. So, but everybody was going above and beyond and just doing everything they could to get to the port because Disney Cruise Line said this cruise is happening. They were not, but there was no communication. Like there was no communication to our travel agent, to us, to anybody. It was just if you called, well, the cruise is happening. So, and I never called because I knew that the agents had as much as information that I did. So I wasn't going to waste my time because people were online you know, on hold for hours. Our first communication from Disney Cruise Line was 8:30 the night before the sailing. 8:30 the night. That was the first communication. Now the storm had passed and I understand, but what I don't get is it's a stressful time. Like obviously it was very stressful and I understand that there's probably things that they don't know. But I think communication to say, we intend to set sail. We are monitoring the situation because that's pretty much what the email said. But they waited until 8:30 the night before to tell us this. And, you know, a lot of people were changing their plans and paying thousands of extra dollars to get a new flight. And there was no communication from Disney. And like not even like, hey, we're gonna do everything we can to get this sailing, but it may not happen. Like just something, there was nothing. So 8:30 the night before, we get an email basically saying that our port arrival time was now 4 hours later. So our port arrival time was at 11:30. So we were told to come 4 hours later. So that was going to be 3:30. We had originally planned on going to Vero Beach the night before. We decided to cancel because there was no point going to Vero Beach if we, you know, didn't have to leave first thing in the morning. We would just drive straight from our home, which is what we did. I was monitoring the situation, kind of monitoring what was going on, and I noticed that they hadn't opened the port. So we were kind of waiting and waiting. And I was like, I don't want to leave our house to sit at the port of Canaveral for, you know, hours on end. So I was, you know, watching it, and we had planned to leave at around 12 to get there at 3:30. But at 12, they hadn't, you know, they hadn't opened the port yet. And we knew they had to get all the passengers off. So we just kind of waited. We ended up leaving around 1:30. We were like, okay, we're not gonna hear anything. Let's get on the road. We were probably about 15 minutes out, and then we get another email. And the email said, your time now is 6.5 hours past, which would have been 6 o'clock. So we're like, okay, well, let's just go. And we weren't sure. We were originally gonna stop, but then we were like, you know what? We hit some traffic And we're like, you know what, let's just go straight to the port. We'll just wait there. So as we were driving, I was following, and I noticed that they hadn't even, you know, opened the port yet. So what I found out later was, because they were originally supposed to start getting people off at 12, and what I heard at 3:30, they finally got clearance to, now they were sitting in port like from 12, but they didn't get clearance to unload the ship for several hours. And at 3:30, they said, okay, you have clearance, everybody get off. Everybody was told to carry their luggage with them. So the porters told us that they had maybe 20% of the luggage, you know, as far as, you know, taking people to their cars. Like everybody was walking off with their luggage, and everybody got off the ship at once. So I heard that disembarkation was hellish. Now they did get a half a morning because they had to be out of their rooms at 11, but they had activities until 1:30. They had lunch, they had everything, but that disembarkation must have been hellish. We got to the port, I want to say around, and I have to look back at the timestamps, but we got there around 5:30, and we didn't expect to be let in, and we were let in. Now traffic was horrendous, but I remember getting to the garage. I think we got and we parked around 5:30, and then we were in the ship. We were on the ship pretty fast. Like we were boarding group 8, so we only waited like 2 boarding groups. Like they were calling 6 by the time we got there. We were able to go to the bathroom and then get on the ship. So we were one of the first people on the ship. The Christmas tree was being built. Wasn't there. That I understood. They were supposed to do that in between, and they didn't have that time, so that I understood. That didn't bother me. But we got on the ship, it was 6 o'clock, so they did still have first seating, and so people were like literally getting on the ship and going straight to their first seating, and then some people who had first seating but maybe missed it were able to get into second seating. We had second seating, which was 8:15. At 8:05, we went to our seating, and we waited, and we waited, and we waited. They didn't open the doors till 8:35. It's 20 minutes later. So we were standing there in that hallway with no circulation for a half an hour. Now I understand things were complicated, but they were pushing a lot of things back, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. They should have pushed it back. They knew, you know, or just start seating us with people still there. There were still a lot of people coming out from the first seating because everybody was getting there late. But the line was so long, and just, it was stifling hot. It was so hot. And then that just pushed everything out for us, because now we started 20 minutes late. We didn't, like I mentioned earlier, we didn't get out of there till 10:15. And we were just, I wanted to like rush to see the tree lighting. But, you know, my son was over it. He was over it because it just took so long. So again, given the circumstances, I understood, but we lost our whole day. We had planned to do late seating for a couple reasons, but one of the reasons why was we always do a lot of things the first day, but we never go to the pool. We never treat it as like a pool day or a cruise day. This time we were gonna do that. We were gonna go in our swimsuits, and we were gonna get on, you know, try and do the aqua mouse, because I heard the first day is the best time to do the aqua mouse, because we figured we would have time to get ready for dinner. So we were going to really treat that first day as a sea day. We lost that. We lost that, and there were no character interactions. We had a couple character interactions when we first boarded. We saw Mickey and Minnie, we got pictures, and that was it. There were no other character photos the rest of the night. Now I understand why, because they pushed the show to 7:45, and those characters are in the show, so they weren't available for pictures. But that's something that was taken away from us from that sailing. And you know, so that was some of the things that happened that first day. Now, a couple things with that first night. We obviously didn't have a sail away. I mentioned that in my recap video. They did change the sail away to the Castaway Key Day so that we could see it, and then it rained. But you know, so there was a lot of things that we just didn't have because of the delay. And I think the most, you know, it was just the worst part was just that it was very chaotic, and there was just no information from Disney. It just, a little communication would have gone a long way. It was a very stressful situation. It was stressful for us, and we were able to drive. But if there had been some communication from Disney Cruise Line to say, this is what's going on, this is our intention, you know, we will keep you updated as things progress. But to get 2 emails, they knew at you know, well before 1:30 or 1:45 when that second email came out that the ship hadn't been cleared and that it was going to be more than 6.5 hours. They should have been updating us every hour and sending us emails. I think there's no problem of sending us too much information, but to wait, and then some people were turned away at the port and were sitting out, and then they opened the port earlier than they thought. We got lucky because they had opened the port like pretty much right before we got there, so we were able to get in, but other people had been turned away maybe 10 minutes earlier. So really, just really chaotic, and I was very, very, very disappointed in Disney Cruise Line with the lack of information, the lack of communication to the guests to say, hey, this is what's going on. It made a stressful situation more stressful. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of things for the cruise were, you know, everything was shortened. Everything was shortened. Losing 6.5, 7 hours of a sailing for a 3-night sailing is a large chunk of time. We lost, you know, it's a 2.5-day cruise, pretty much. We lost a half day. So we lost 20% of our cruise. We lost, I mean, that's how I see it. We lost 20% of our cruise because you have 2.5 days, we lost a half a day. And a lot of people have asked me, did we get any sort of compensation? The answer is no. We didn't get anything. We didn't get just honestly anything. I have written to Disney about some of the issues that we had. That was one of the reasons why I've been waiting to do this video, because I was waiting for a response. I have yet to receive any sort of response. Not even like, I got the, yes, we got your email, but that is it. We did the picture package. Several, I think 4 sets of our pictures are missing. So we have several pictures that are missing from our PhotoPass, and I'm trying to get in touch with them and having them search for it. But, you know, these are pictures that we waited in line for. The few characters that we did wait, one was Spider-Man, which my son, you know, loves and really wanted to see, and those are gone. So there's other pictures that we're missing, and we've been back. I'm recording this on the 6th. We have been back since the 14th, so 3.5 weeks, and I still haven't heard anything. But as far as any sort of compensation from Disney, there was nothing. I know some people are trying to file with their insurance. We did have travel insurance, so I did file a claim, because if it's certain amount of hours, I don't know if we'll get anything back. But we did lose a lot of the cruise. And I mean, if they had given us $100 credit, onboard credit, I think I would have been good. But just to kind of pretend like nothing and like we didn't miss anything was just a little disappointing. I will say the crew was fantastic. Our rooms were ready when we got on, but that was kind of understandable, because the guests before had been kicked out at 11, even though they were on the ship. But the crew was fantastic on the ship. But I think for corporate Disney Cruise Line, they need to work on situations like this, because it did not leave a really good taste in my mouth of the customer service that I've grown to know and love about Disney. I didn't get that from the corporation of Disney Cruise Line. I did get it from the ship and the crew, on the cast and crew on the ship, but not from Disney Cruise Line itself. So what does this experience teach me? One, find your Facebook group, because our source of information was each other in our Facebook group. Also, have a travel agent, Disney Cruise Line travel agent. You know, I'll post a couple below of people that I think are great. But most importantly, and this is something I don't always do, is travel insurance. We usually travel to the port by car, so we're not worried about being able to fly in and stuff. To see so many people have to cancel because their flights were canceled, because the airport was closed and they couldn't find an alternative. And they were canceling with basically nothing. They were losing everything. Some people were able to switch to a different sailing, but it was a penalty of $300 per person. So if you had a family of 4, that's $1,200, that if you paid $4,000, your cruise, now your credit was $2,800. So now a couple people, because this sailing was particularly very expensive because it was the very first very maritime sailing on the Disney Wish. And honestly, it kind of sucked in that regard. We definitely didn't get our money for the very maritime, because a lot of things have been added, and it was kind of done half-ass, honestly, with that. But And I don't think that was because of the storm. I just don't think they were prepared. But again, so some people were able to move their sailing to a different one and only have to pay up, you know, like $200 or $300 and not $1,200 difference. But some people just canceled and just lost the money. So get travel insurance, you know, get a good travel agent to handle it for you, get travel insurance. This has definitely changed my mind as far as travel insurance because, you know, especially we were driving. We weren't local to the port. It was a 3-hour drive. And, you know, we have filed a claim for the time difference because we did lose 6 hours. And that is like, if you lose 6 hours, I don't know if we're going to get anything. If we do, great. If we don't, it's not a big deal. We still had a great time. And I have said that several times. We had a great time, but we definitely didn't get our value. Definitely did not get our value. And just disappointed that Disney didn't handle it better because Disney Cruise Line is usually the one that sets itself apart by customer service. And in this time, they completely, I think, failed the bill. I think that just, they didn't live up to their own standards and that was disappointing. So my best advice is if you're ever gonna travel, and November's hurricane season, but not really, get travel insurance and find your Facebook group, and hopefully you never have this situation because honestly it kind of sucked. But with that, if you like this video, click like, click and subscribe. That way you get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye everyone.